This is segment 004 of Message to My Tribe. The last message to my tribe was on faith and belief. And that one actually generated some quick responses. There was a comment that I'm going to address on this one. And this one was concerning following Jesus. It was mentioned during that I made a statement about people being hypocrites and the Pharisees, and that Jesus did not like the hypocrites and the Pharisees, and that many people today are taking the leadership role who are the hypocrites and the Pharisees. They've pushed this out forward. So somebody took it as though I was saying that, all Christians are hypocrites and, and no, I did not say that. I was not saying that. That was not my intention. What I said is that people that take the leadership role, are usually people that their lives are not following the example of Jesus. Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, when he came around, he came to be an example. When he came amongst the Jews from his birth, his miraculous birth, he was amongst them and he was teaching the people. He was an example. Excellence. It wasn't hypocritical. A lot of statements that the people use today, oh, everybody's born in sin, it's okay to sin. These are things that came after. When the Romans got the message, they went to the people, and these people were living in sin. So when Paul went to these people, he gave them a watered down version. But that's the message that Paul was giving out. That's the example. But what Jesus was talking about what? He was talking about the worshiping the one God and not being hypocrites and the Pharisees. He focused on his people. And what did he do? Just like I'm sending a message to my tribe, then that's what he did. He focused on the people. And the people always have a problem with it. They want to always talk about other people and other people's situation and who's doing bad and who's this. But like he said before you take something out of somebody else's eye, you have to take that boulder or that stone or that large thing out of your own eye. But what has happened is today is people have taken his messages and they have used it, and with that they increase sin. They didn't decrease it, but if you use his example and how he lived and what he did, for example, i.e., many times I ask people, well, in the Torah it says that you are not supposed to eat pork, right? And or the Old Testament. And they said, yeah, but Jesus came and he clarified that. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, he said it's not what goes in you, it's what comes out of you. Now let's look at that part. What happened? This was a situation where Jesus was there with his disciples, and he was amongst the Jews, and they saw his disciples eating, and they had not washed their hands. And so the people made a statement, look at your disciples. They didn't wash their hands. And then Jesus said, verily, I say, it's not what goes in you, it's what comes out of you. And so people have taken that to say that the permissibility of eating pork or ignoring the requirements of the law. Did Jesus wash his hands? Yeah, he did. Because if he didn't, they would have said, why didn't you wash your hands? But what did they say? They said disciples. So Jesus followed all of the things that the law said. Then Jesus said, verily I say unto you, not even one letter of the law is to be destroyed until the end of time. So I asked the people, are we at the end of the time? Is it over? So if we're not at the end of the time, then it is incumbent upon those that say that they follow Jesus, because this is what he was doing, was he was not destroying anything of the law at that time. So today, let's move forward 2,000 years later. 2,000 years later, what do we have? We have people who don't follow the laws, who don't follow what he says, and they use this excuse, everybody sins. Oh, God forgives everybody. But what did Jesus tell a prostitute? There was a situation when there was a prostitute that was supposed to be stoned. And in the Jewish law, in order for you to stone somebody, in order for you to be the judge or the one that's going to do the punishment, your slate has to be clean. For example, if I stole and the punishment was to cut off my hand, before I can throw a stone at you, they have to deal with my hand before I come and I can apply it to you. So in this situation, there was a prostitute, and they were going to stone the prostitute. And then he looked, and then Jesus said, he said, he who was without sin, cast the first stone. So people take that, oh, well, everybody sins. No, you got to understand the law. At that time, in order for you to be the applier of the law, you had to check in. Okay, well, you know what? I gotta take care of this hand situation because I stole. Okay, well, look, you stole. You can't do that. I committed adultery, so you got to stone me to death. Or I committed fornication. I got to get this punishment before I do it to this lady. So what happened once he made that statement, and everybody knew that Jesus knew the law? What happened? They all started walking out because why? Jesus was there, and Jesus didn't have to. He had a clear slate, and they knew that. So he could be the one to be able to be the judge if anybody was going to be the one to apply the judgment or the punishment at that time to the people. So they started walking out and they left. And then it left her there by herself. And what did he say to her? He said, where are your accusers? And they had gone. And he said what? He said, verily I say unto you, he said, go, he said, and sin no more. Did he say continue to sin because I'm going to forgive you? It's okay. Go out there and still go get another pimp or a prostitute. Sexual. No, he didn't say any of that. He said sin no more. This is the guidance. This is what he said. So here it is. The person that's teaching, he said, he didn't tell her to continue. But what do people do today? Oh, it's okay. God's going to forgive you. It's all right. Everybody sins. And so because of that, you have people in position. For example, in the music industry, you will hear somebody, they got #1 record on talking about somebody doing something with another female or doing something in the whole description. And then when they get up on the stage, they say, first, I want to thank God. Thank God. Are you spreading the word of God? Are you giving the truth? Are you following Jesus' example? So the point that I was saying about Jesus with the hypocrisy and not liking the hypocrites, he was a man that went to his own people. He didn't go to the Romans. He could have went to the Romans and talked about the political things and what was happening, the oppression of the Romans. The Romans was crushing, the people at that time. They was controlling them and they was keeping them in a poor state. These people were poor. They were being, the Romans had total control of the people at the time. But no, what did he do? He got his people in check. And this is an example. This is what I'm trying to follow as far as it working on getting my people in check. And this is what we have to do. And this is what we have to do ourselves. Look at our own selves. Like he said, take that out your own eye. But the whole thing of all sin is the same, no. It hasn't changed. There's different degrees of it. And one of the worst sin, according to the Bible, is that thou shalt have no other God before thy Lord, the one God, the Creator. That's the worst sin, is to worship other than the one that created you. So to say that sin is equal to I cursed, okay, it's all the same. No, these are innovations. These are things that Jesus did not teach. So it's important, if you want to follow his example of how he lived, how he dealt with the people, the patience that he had, looking, in his guidance. Follow his guidance. Look what he says. If you say that this is who you follow Jesus, you say you Christian, you follow Jesus, that's the example, then go to it and look at what he says, not what everybody else said. Like I said, Paul had a message and he went to who? He went to the Romans. But what did Jesus say? I'm here to deliver the message to my people. So you actually have to look at the message that he delivered to his people. And with Paul going to the Romans, who was worshiping man as God and all kind of other things, which these people did not understand, they took it that when he came to him and he said, no, he is not God, but, he's the next level. Oh, and they're like, okay, well, he's like a son of God, in that situation. And they've turned this interpretation, they've turned this thing into a so-called reality. But the reality is God does not have any son. God does not have any children. All are creation of God. And we have to understand that. So follow that example. Like I said, I'm not talking about the people being hypocrites and no. I'm talking about the people want to take control and they want to do something opposite of what the Messiah or what the prophet said, and then still be in charge. If you don't have your act together, step back. Go to the guidance. Point out yourself. You know what? I believe in it, but I'm weak. These are my things. I do this. And you should try to strive to be the best. Like Jesus said in the book, he said to the prostitute, what? He said, get up, get out, and sin no more. So I say to you, get up, get out, and stop sinning and try to live right and be that example that Jesus has set. So then you can be able to be here and benefit from when he comes back.